moment to draw, sir.
But only a moment. Mrs. Hudson is the mistress of the art of firelighting. This is my intimate friend and associate, Dr. Watson, before whom you may speak as freely as before myself.
How do you do?
Mrs. Hudson, do you think you could bring this young lady a hot cup of coffee? For I observe you are shivering.
It is not cold which makes me shiver.
What then?
It is fear, Mr. Holmes. It is terror.
No, you must not fear. We shall set matters right, have no doubt. You have come by train, I see, this morning.
You know me, then?
No, but I observe the second half of a return ticket in the palm of your left glove. You started early, but you had a drive in a dog cart along heavy roads before you reached the station. But there's no mystery, my dear lady. The left arm of your jacket is spattered with mud in no less than 7 places. The marks are fresh. There is no vehicle, save a dog cart, which throws up mud in that particular way. And then only when you sit on the left-hand side of the driver.
You are perfectly correct. Sir, I can stand the strain no longer. I shall go mad if it continues. I have heard of you from Mrs. Farintosh, whom you helped in the hour of her sore need.
Farintosh.
My dear Helen, it is difficult for me to advise you since you present so few facts. But I know you to be a sensible girl, not prone to hysterics. As one of your poor dear mother's oldest friends, I can only suggest that if your fears persist, you should contact Mr. Sherlock Holmes at 221B Baker Street.
Farintosh, oh yes, I do remember the case. It concerned an opal tiara. I think it was before your time, Watson. Thank you, Mrs. Hudson.
Sir, do you not think you could help me too? At present it is out of my power to reward you, but in a few weeks I shall be married with control of my own income.
I shall be happy to devote the same care to your case as to that of your friend. As for reward, my profession is its own reward. But you are at liberty to defray whatever expenses I may be put to at the time which suits you best. And now, I beg you, lay everything before us which may help us form an opinion upon this matter.
My name is Helen Stoner. I live with my stepfather, Dr. Grimsby Roylott, who is the last survivor of one of the oldest Saxon families in England.
The Roylotts of Stoke Moran, the name is familiar to me.
He is a doctor by profession, a skilled one. For some years he had a large and flourishing practice in India, in Calcutta.
Ah.
Dr. Watson has also practiced medicine in India.
Yes. Attached to the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers. And pray continue, Miss Stoner.
In Calcutta he married my mother. She was the young widow of Major General Stoner of the Bengal Artillery. I was only 2 at the time of Mother's remarriage, and my sister, Julia, was 5 years older. Our mother had a considerable sum of money, not less than 1,000 a year, and this she bequeathed to Dr. Roylott entirely while we resided with him.
Forgive me, your mother has passed on?
Shortly after our return to England, she was killed in a railway accident near Crewe. My stepfather then abandoned his attempts to establish himself in practice in London and took us to live in his ancestral home at Stoke Moran.
But the money your mother left you was enough for all your wants, so that was no obstacle to your happiness.
A terrible change came over my stepfather. Instead of making friends and exchanging visits with our neighbours, who at first were overjoyed to see a Roylott back in the family seat, he shut himself up in the house and indulged in ferocious quarrels. At times it was, and still is, hard to keep him out of the police courts. He's become the terror of the village.
Does he permit any visitors?
None, save my fiancée and some wandering gypsies.
Gypsies?
Vagabonds, whom he has given leave to encamp on his land. Sometimes he goes away with them for days at a time. You can imagine from what I'm saying that my poor sister Julia and I had no great pleasure in our lives. No servant would stay long, so we did all the work of the house. She was but 30 when I lost her. But already her hair had begun to whiten, even as mine has.
Your sister's dead?
Just 2 years ago. It is of that I wish to talk to you.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, no, please.
Living the life we did, we were little likely to see anyone of our own age and position. But we were occasionally allowed short visits. 2 years ago, Julia met a half-pay major of Marines to whom she became engaged.
Your stepfather approved of the match?
He raised no objection at all. But a fortnight before the wedding, the terrible event occurred which deprived me of my only companion.
Pray, be precise as to details.
It is easy. Every event of that night is seared into my memory. It was late, about 11. Julia had come into my room.
Smoking those awful cigars again.
Perhaps you should have this room until the wedding.
Oh, Helen. Oh, I feel so happy. And yet wretched that I'm leaving you here alone.
My turn will come.
I shall miss you.
You won't. I'll come and stay. Besides, your major has promised to find me a brother officer of equal rank and infinitely better looking. My darling, what is the matter?
Helen, have you ever heard anyone whistle in the dead of night? I suppose you couldn't possibly whistle yourself in your sleep.
Certainly not. Why?
The last few nights, always about 3 in the morning, I've been woken by a low, clear whistle. I can't tell where it's coming from. I thought you might have heard it.
I sleep more heavily than you. It was probably those wretched gypsies.
Well, never mind.
Was it your custom always to lock yourself in at night?
Always. My stepfather has a passion for Indian animals. A leopard and a baboon wander freely over the grounds. Julia and I had no feelings of security unless our doors and windows were locked. I couldn't sleep. I had a vague feeling of misfortune. Julia! Please help me!
Speckled. Band. Get Father. No! No! Leave me at your fine.
Go back to your room, child. I'll deal with this.
I am sorry, gentlemen. My sister and I were very close.
Yes, indeed. What an awful experience. And you've no idea what might have caused...
This whistle and a metallic sound, you can swear to it?
It was my strong impression. I may possibly have been deceived.
Was your sister dressed?
No, she was in her nightdress. On the floor there was a candle and the charred stump of a match.